table, which is in there. And the Feminist Library is a London-based library which has been going, I think, for about 40 years now. And it's a very precarious space. It's barely funded, barely housed. And at the moment it's in a really lovely period of change where recent interest in feminism has got loads of young people involved. The Tate Gallery are interested in it, all sorts of things are happening, and it's in a much better place than it's been for a long time. But please support them, and please can go to the stall, find out more about them, pick up their card. You can be a friend of the Feminist Library, even from here, I believe, and just pay €1 a month or something, and it would be really good and help secure their future. And her story that isn't really told anywhere else, and it's up to us to safeguard that. So that's the Feminist Library. And I'm going to talk. First, before I begin my talk, I want to give a quote from a woman called Red Hanky, who said, "A zine is a tool of permission. It authorises its maker to say what they like, how they like it, and no one can censor that." And I hope that's why we're all here, as people interested in zines. And I'm Rachael House, I'm an artist from London, and one of the things I do is make zines. And in 2008, I drew this. Can you see this? Can you see it? Can you read it? It says, "You're never too old to make a zine." Zine tip number 6. So first zine says Menopausal Babe, the next one says Hack Mag, and the last one says Crazy Crones Queer Quarterly, and that's from 2008. And I drew it for Melanie Madison, who put on a zine event at the Women's Library in London, which is different from the Feminist Library. Women's Library no longer exists, which shows we must safeguard these places. And while I was at the Women's Library, I went to a talk about queerzine history by Colette Rosa. And I went to that talk expecting to learn something, only to find that the queerzine history talk was about me and my 90s queerzine peers. So 2008 was the year I became queer history. 10 years on, I must be ancient history, and yet somehow I'm still here and I'm talking to you today. It's a miracle. So with this in mind, I'm going to talk about the campaigning nature of some of my historical work to begin with. And this is a photo of my autobiographical comic zines of Red Hanky Panky, which I started in the 1990s. I'm only up to number 10, they're quite irregular, but there are some on the Feminist Library table next door. Go through Support the Feminist Library. There's a lot of sex in the zine, and it championed polyamory and queer and bisexualities with humour. Can you see that? Because I can't see that at all. That's not very good. I don't know what's happened to that. That was very clear. Shall I read it to you anyway? It's called First Time. This is from 1993. It says, "I just had sex with a man. It was okay, actually. It didn't hurt, and I came. I didn't even bleed. Mind you, he said I was a bit rough. You might be able to see, can you see the last panel? Yeah, there's somebody smiling. Very different times. And it's hard to remember now that the world was divided into lesbian, gay and heterosexual, and it was far from the glorious inclusiveness of LGBTQIA. And I think it's actually quite difficult to remember that and how divided those times were, because it wasn't that long ago. I'm guessing it was the same here as it was in the UK. Yeah. So this is My Life's Confusing. See, my cat's a dog, my girl's a boy, my boy's a fag. He's reading Tom of Finland, interestingly, in that picture. And my strips were part of the movement to change this. And as well as being put in my zine, they were reprinted in other zines and magazines and newsletters nationally and internationally. I can see it on my screen here. I'm not sure what's happening with the projection of these. So in the UK, we had a very odd law where the age of consent was different for men having sex together than it was for men and women having sex together. So for heterosexual sex, the age of consent was 16. For gay sex, for men having sex together, the age of consent was 21.
Here it was 18.
Sorry?
Here it was 18.
Yeah, it went down to 18 from 21. For a long time it was 21, then it went down to 18. And this strip is about the House of Lords blocked an equal age of consent. And what I say, this is another 90s strip, is those people who were around then and blocked an equal age of consent, they're in the government now, they're still around, and they pay lip service to equality in many different ways. In terms of, Theresa May was on the news the other day where somebody was asking her what she did to free Nelson Mandela, and she couldn't say anything because she thought he was a terrorist. You know, those people are they're in Parliament now. We mustn't be fooled by them with their assimilationist politics. Where have I got to? I went off script then for a moment. And I also do strips about my mental health. I also drew strips about my mental health. And there's some amazing comics about these issues these days. And Marbles by Ellen Forney is particularly great. I don't know if you've read that. So very good. But it wasn't really talked about as much then. So this is called Depression Affirmation. And it says, I am a good person. And I've got a little alter ego saying for a drunken lech. I have lovely friends, sucker kind of people just feel sorry for you. I'm sexy and attractive. You pick your nose and eat it and you're deluded. People like my cartoons, a few weirdos who agree with you anyway. I got into art college because they want your money. My cat loves me and my cat is thinking, fetch me tuna now, bitch. And trans and non-binary issues also weren't as talked about in those days as they are now. But sometimes it just feels the world is changing for the better a great deal. So I drew this in about 1995. Is it a boy or a girl? We're going to let it decide when it's grown up. And someone pointed out to me the other day, this baby will be an adult now that I drew back then. And I wonder how they would define their gender. Oh, I wish this was working properly so you could see these drawings. I'm sorry. This one's called My Zine's a Failure. It hasn't overthrown the government. Capitalism strong as it ever was. It's still a patriarchal society. Homophobia's not disappeared, and it hasn't even got me laid. And it's probably just as well you can't see this one because it was my Christmas card. At some point in the 90s, and I look at it now and think, what was I thinking that I sent this to everyone? And we've come a long way in a lot of the things my work was about, but this one particularly is partly about the gendering of toys, and I think that's only got worse. I don't know if that's the same here. So this is every year on Christmas Eve I travel around switching children's toys. See, Butch Barbies, drag queen action man, gender fuck Cindy, butt fucking Barbie and Ken. It's worth it just to see those little kiddies' faces light up. I sent that as my Christmas card. Still can't see it very well. I'm jumping forward more than a decade, and this is also about mental health, it's about grieving. And there's a crossover with my broader fine art practice now. And I'm writing in this about how we think with our whole bodies. And every day I'm grieving for my parents, and my hands know more than I do. And I embroider peacocks and trade union banners, draw beetles and dog-headed saints. My work speaks of arts and crafts, William Morris, class and socialism. But there is no reply. So these are lots of things I was making following the deaths of my parents. I feel very sad that you can't see these. these are coming up so badly. And this is from 2012. And my comics at this point are pretty much integrated into the rest of my art practice. And I don't think of them as being limited in scope, but as one tool in a wide range of tools telling the same stories. So this one's called Apathy's a Drag. Not nostalgia, punk era. 1990, a tough year. I was prepared. The pinnacle of hostility when I wore my Stuff the Jubilee badge. By 2002 and the Queen's Golden Jubilee, I had a plan. I didn't want to celebrate hereditary power, who would? So I organised a series of anti-Jubilee events and made pinatas of the Queen to be smashed. It was a meaningful alternative. It was even on the ITV television news. But now it's 2012 and the old fart's still on the throne. Surprisingly, I'd failed to overthrow the monarchy. I want to dance in the streets as much as the next middle-aged woman, but I want my carnival raucous, bacchanalian and wild, not state-sanctioned flag-waving. I will protest again, but frankly I balk at smashing a facsimile of such an old woman. Whatever else I do, I'll be wearing my Stuff the Jubilee badge. And so for the next Jubilee I did do another art project, and I did this project called Apathy's Drag, which is the same name as the comic strip that I just read to you. And I did this project on the lake in Southwark Park in London, and I invited people to make a flotilla of toy boats to mark the anniversary of the Sex Pistols' ill-fated boat trip on the Thames in 1977. Which was a week before the Silver Jubilee. And I had the Strawberry Thieves Socialist Choir singing, and they sang Republican songs from around the world. And I have got placards here that were developed from the earlier comic strips. So what starts happening is my comic strips are feeding into my other practice and vice versa, they work together. And what my strips and art events have in common is that they're modelling new ways of being in the world, and they're attempting to be transformative. As far as collaboration goes, on the whole, I'd rather be in charge. And this was drawn on a particularly fraught art residency, where we were expected to document each day's trauma in the evening, and I did that with comic strips. But of course I do collaborate, and this was in 2006 at Supernormal Experimental Art and Music Festival with Erica Smith and others. And in the 90s, Erica edited a wonderful zine called Girl Frenzy. I don't know if that reached here. It's amazing. Girl Frenzy was an amazing anthology zine in the 90s. And we got together for this project and did something that reflected our older selves, and we called it Girl Frenzy to Crone Frenzy. And a lot of it revolved around menopause, which was perfect for the music festival crowd. This was outside our tent. Our sign said, Girl Frenzy to Crone Frenzy, welcome to our tent, come on in, we are lovely, crossed out, grumpy, crossed out, we have mood swings. And we made comic strips about ageing. This is an exhibition here of comic strips about ageing. Mifan was in it, in this. So in a very kind of ad hoc punk rock way, we had our exhibition pinned up on a board in a field at the festival. And we had a crone passing out ceremony at the end of our few days at the festival, where we said a symbolic goodbye to our youth, and we had a special song that we sang, and here you can see Karina Townsend is playing the saw and Andy Diagram is playing the trumpet for our song. and we said a symbolic goodbye to our youth, and that's my niece. I don't know if you can see in the middle of the photo, it's symbolising all our youth, my poor niece. And we symbolically killed her with our love. She's fine now. Okay, back to strips. So I used comics for my fine art MA, which I did as a mature student, as part of my reflective journal. And this one says, the next person who tells me that my work should be more antagonistic will get one of these. And they work for me as a way to hone what I want to say and to use fewer words and get to the essence of things. And this one is, when does art go too far? Are artists allowed to do as we please? How do we know when art crosses a line? Does it depend on intention, politics, skill, motives, aesthetics, results, or something else? After considerable research, I think it's okay as long as I like the art. And again, this is from the difficult residency. And anyone who's been a part of or excluded from groups may recognise this. I don't know if you can see it, but everything is happening in the guttering of the project and not in the panels, not where it's meant to be happening, but in the guttering. And it's saying the thing about groups is that so much of the important stuff gets said in the cafe, smoking cigarettes on the doorsteps, in the car, queuing for the toilet, on the bus home at lunchtime, while the kettle boils, under our breath on the way out of the door. I'm really proud of that strip with no drawing in it at all. It's one of my favourites, actually. Yeah. And I use comics, I think, to empower myself and others and express my beliefs. And this one, also, I've redrawn this since, but I did this one for Melanie Madison in 2008 as well. There's no such thing as a bad drawing. Your drawing simply has to be strong enough to hold the idea. Come to my zine workshop afterwards and we'll demonstrate this. And I really believe this, that we should take some joy in drawing. You don't have to draw well to zines, like foil. And again, this depression I carry in my head, heart, breast and belly, it needs to be released through my hands to enable me to understand, to transform it into something of beauty and worth. But my hands don't work because of the depression I carry in my head, heart, breast and belly. And in recovery from that bout of depression, I went to QZAP. Do people know about QZAP? Queerzine Archive Project in Milwaukee. It's very marvellous. And I did a short residency there in the basement of Chris Wilde and Milo Miller's flat, where the archive is. And it grounded me again, and it was really amazing to do it. And this little strip is from the residents made a zine, and some of my strips went in it. And this is some of the zines I found in the archive, and I'm not saying that queer zines are better than other zines, but so far I haven't come across any that are just full of cutesy fucking illustrations of owls and cupcakes. And that owls and cupcakes for me has become a bit of a thing I say that's shorthand for zines that are really beautiful. You pick them up, but then they haven't really got much content. How am I doing for time? I haven't got very much time, so I might not read this one to you. Yes, I will, because my only note for it says read this. I should do it. I went to art school, because you can't see the picture, can you, anyway? I went to art school as a mature student in 2000, and I owed my place to a portfolio of comic strips and fanzines, Well done, said gorgeous performance artist Marissa Koneski. But remember where you come from, the underground. Sisters and brothers, I did not heed her wise words. I saw piss-poor painters smugly referred to comic strips, and I did not speak out. I saw artist fanzines containing no passion, no politics, no anger, no joy, and I did not speak out. And I love art with a capital A. But some artists thoughtlessly fuck with things that matter. They do not understand that queer, lo-fi, low culture is not lesser. Zines are amateur, shining with love. They have a long-armed stapler and they're going to use it. Great fanzines see a modern-day folk art. Fanzines are not dependent on funding from the Arts Council. And as well as doing that sort of work, I do other art projects. And this one, Peckham Fantastic, and this one with mobility scooters, Peckham Peacocks, bring people together in public spaces in the same way that I think zines can bring people together, bring communities together with different sorts of different materials, but it's a similar thing. They're things that are important to me. It's about building communications and building connections. And I do a project called Rachael House's Feminist Disco, putting the disco into discourse. And this slogan on the banner that I've made, to be normal is not a healthy aspiration, was recycled from a 90s comic strip that I did, and I'm still using it in another format now. And part of that, part of the discourse is people that I really admire, I get to talk to, and this person here is called Lucy Toothpaste, was called Lucy Toothpaste. She doesn't go by that name anymore, and she wrote about punk rock for Spare Rib, which was an amazing feminist magazine in the UK that started in the 70s and had comic strips in every single issue from the first one ever. And Lucy Toothpaste wrote about punk for it, and she was part of a group called Rock Against Racism and another one called Rock Against Sexism, which were real important things for me as a teenager. So to get to meet her and talk to her as part of my artwork was amazing. Other things for that is Patti Smith, Pin the Hair on Joan Jett. And this is Pin the Tie on Patti Smith. This is all part of Rachael House's Feminist Disco. This is at Bentfest Queer Punk Festival. I've also made a portable queering kit for performing. For when you find yourself in a space that you're not sure if it's queer enough, I've made a portable queering kit for it with pictures of Joan Jett. It's quite big, even though it's portable, it's a little bit big for me to bring here. I've got a little, I can give you a little taster of it though, if you like. Say yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Note to self, don't be scared. Queering is a beautiful, powerful thing, like Joan Jett. There. She can just go here. I'm not going to do very many of these. Okay, 3. Okay. And this is Joan Jett eating chips, and of course Joan Jett eats chips, because queering isn't about gastro bars and gentrification, it's about chips, and chips on your shoulder. I'm feeling a bit better already. I feel this room is queerer as we are sitting here. I'm feeling better. I hope you will too. And queering is about making trouble, and it's about making a noise. It's not about marriage and homonormativity. Joan doesn't care about her bad reputation. There you go. Oh, she's fallen over it. So I have a whole bag of those in my portable queering kit, and I can take it around and queer places that aren't really quite queer enough. And there she is in action with Joan Jett biscuits and smashing the patriarchy. This is a poster for a Supernormal art project that I did, or I invited people to gather at a certain time to smash the patriarchy, and I didn't tell them what we were going to do. And what we did was we smashed this giant piñata that says patriarchy in the woods. And public art is dominated by the necessary, by funders and commissioners knowing in advance what they want the work to be and do. And what I try and do is make a space for the unexpected and the joyful, and modelling ways of being. And afterwards, of course, we had a cup of tea. And I did a similar thing. This is at the V&A. They did a project called Queer and Now at the V&A, and I made a huge piñata that says heteronormativity. And I don't know if you can see, but it was placed in the entrance of the V&A, so it's quite amazing, which is a big museum in London. But it's right next to the wedding dress sign there for the Hall of Wedding Dresses, which is beautifully put there. It couldn't get smashed in the V&A, but it got smashed in Vauxhall in a club called Ducky, and this is an outdoor urinal where the remains of heteronormativity got dumped after it was smashed. And I did it again in Cambridge a couple of years later. I love making these piñatas. And part of the reason I love it so much is that if we can imagine something, that change in the world, it's the first step to making that change happen, I think. And when they're smashed, when we smash the piñatas, for like a minute or a few minutes or half an hour, we've actually made that change in the world. And I think if we could do it, and all the people there would believe that change has happened, we've made it happen. And I think if we can do that for a few hours, it allows for the possibility that we can do it for longer. And we can really rid the world of those things for a longer time. And I think, imagining it's the first step for that to happen. And I did homonormativity, and again, this is at Bentfest, a queer punk festival. Okay, I am going to read this bit, because I haven't got very much longer. So my work uses humour as an important access point. And there's a writer called T.J. Demos who says that the carnivalesque can be a way of staging possibilities. And he talked about a curator being an engaged curator in times of crisis. And I think we can also speak of being an engaged artist or cartoonist or zinester in times of crisis. And I think we're certainly in crisis now. And my work is heartfelt, but it avoids the earnest. I'm saying that very earnestly to you now, because but my work is very heartfelt. And crucially, it's dependent on other people's involvement to make it happen. And I really love this photograph with everyone, I don't know how well you can see it, but people really laughing and smiling as it gets smashed. And I think it's what ecstatic resistance looks like. Another one you can't read, it's a reminder for Pride, 2014. Heteronormativity oppresses and damages us all, but remember, we do not have to conform to slide into homonormativity. We can create a pride that honours the radical queers of the past and incorporates the panache of dykes on bikes and looks to the future. We do not have to assimilate. We already have value and worth. We're building something else, something good, something new. So I want to combine ecstatic resistance. There's a writer and artist called Emily Royston who talks about ecstatic resistance. And I want to combine that with the ecstatic and communal joy and place it firmly within a political context which speaks of possibilities, potential, and new ways of being in the world. And finally, please God, save me from proper art. That's it. Thank you very much. And that's for half an hour. I don't know if there's a question and answer time, or if everyone just wants to go and get cups of tea and things.
No idea. Finnish people never ask questions.
Oh, okay, that's cool then. Good, because I have to get the zine workshop ready. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm sorry you couldn't see the slides properly, but I would suggest come and buy some zines. You'll
Yes.
see the strips properly and support the Feminist Library as well. Thank you very much for coming, everyone. Thank you.